Well, welcome back everybody to our professional development webinar series. Our goal in this series is to provide parish and staff and volunteers and diocesan ministers with the formation, training, and tools they need to create vibrant Catholic parishes and growing ministries. In our webinar today, we are going to be joined by Father Michael White and Tom Corcoran, who are the authors, of course, of Rebuilt and the new book, The Rebuilt Field Guide, and they'll be working with Father Michael Saporito to talk through some exercises and discussions, questions, and reflection questions on how to actually do the rebuilding. So many times I know that Father Michael and Tom have asked the question, well, how do I rebuild my parish? And I think this webinar is going to be a really good way of doing that, of how do you actually approach the rebuilding of your parish. So we're excited for it. My name is Jared Dees. I'm the digital marketing manager at Ave Maria Press. I'll be the moderator for the webinar, at least for the beginning and the end. Want to say thanks really quickly to our partners in this series, the National Conference for Catechetical Leadership, the National Association for Catholic Family Life Ministers, the National Association for Lay Ministry, and the National Federation of Priests Councils. We're very grateful for the partnership that they've had with us on this series for many, many years. As always, you can ask questions. We've already got questions coming in, which is great. So you can type those in the question section of the GoToWebinar panel, and we'll ask as many of those as we can towards the end of the presentation. So feel free to type them at any time, and we will throw them at the end towards the presenters. So with that, I want to extend a very warm welcome, of course, to our presenters and our guest. Father Michael White is a priest in the Archdiocese of Baltimore and the pastor of Church of the Nativity in Timonium, Maryland. And Tom Corcoran is the associate to the pastor at at Nativity. Together they are the co-authors of Rebuilt, Tools for Rebuilding and Rebuilding Your Message, as well as the Rebuilt Field Guide, which we're focusing on today. And they've combined sales for more than 130,000 copies over the last just a few years. Father Michael Saporito is the priest from the Archdiocese of Newark and the pastor of the parish community of St. Helen in Westfield, New Jersey. He is a graduate of Rutgers University and an avid Mets and Giants fan. So with that, I want to hand things over to you, Tom, to begin.
All right. Despite that fact, we still love Father Michael, as I'm a Phillies and Eagles fan. So we won't hold that against Father Michael. Father Michael, thanks for being a part of this, though. We're really thrilled you're joining us.
So good to be with you.
So there goes my. Oh, here we go.
There we go.
There we go. So just in talking about the field guide, which we're talking about today, there's kind of a couple things about it. Number one, it is what we call the kind of cliff notes to Rebuilt. So the cliff notes, if you remember those things, and when you're in high school, if you never really read the real book, you just did the cliff notes, as some people would do. The idea was it gave you the core ideas about the book. And so that's the same with the field guide, is that this is a good thing to hand on to people in your parish who maybe you're not sure are going to read the book, but you want them to get the core ideas of what's going on. And so we think pretty quickly the field guide delivers those core ideas of what Rebuilt is all about. And obviously that comes a little bit with some reflection, having written the book and kind of see how it's impacted people, how we've gone out and spoken to people, dioceses across the country, across the world actually. It's just we have further reflection on what are the core ideas that we were trying to communicate in the book, and that's in this field guide. Second thing about it is that it is 10 team exercises. So this is about bringing people together to work, to get to work on the book and get to work on some of the core principles of implementing Rebuilt. At times people have come up to us and said it's a great book, they've read it, but I don't know how to implement it. I don't know what to do with it. We hope that the field guide is a way to help you get started. Father Michael, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, there are 10 team exercises, and both those words are important, team and exercises. So these are not 10 meetings, these are not 10 gatherings, this is not 10 weeks. They're exercises that a team undertakes over a period of time, whether that is something that's accomplished and mastered quickly or whether it in fact takes months. But they're entirely simple. They're not easy. They can be very challenging and very difficult, but they're entirely simple. That's the exercise part. The team part is the core that the pastor, the pastoral life director, the pastoral leader gathers to undertake these exercises together. rebuilding parish life is not a solitary exercise, and when we approach it in that way, we inevitably fail or fall short.
So let's talk a little bit more about that team. That's perfect. So as we say, gather a team. That's something we would encourage parishes to do around this material. Again, of course, gather a team for whatever you're using to rebuild your parish. So a guiding coalition to implement change. And a book called Implementing Change, Leading Change by a guy named John Cotter, very interesting book. He talks about 8 essential elements of bringing about change in any organization, and one of them is there has to be a guiding coalition. So again, a team whose purpose is to implement change. Another thing about this team we're encouraging you to gather is that they can help you understand the past, evaluate the present, and set a future rally cry. So there should be somebody on your team, we would say, that understands where the church came from, who understands a little bit about just some of the history of the church, of why things are the way they are, because in understanding the past, we're better able to then evaluate the present and then move forward into the future. So you want people to help you understand the past, people, though, that can bring a critical eye and help you evaluate what's really going on in the present, but then are also, hope-oriented or future-oriented. They want to bring about change in setting this future rally cry or the action steps you're going to take to move the parish forward. Another thing with the team is take the next step. That the part of the meeting, as these are exercises, as Father Michael said, so that we can take the next step and move forward. So those are a couple of things about the team. Father Michael, go ahead.
I would add that just because somebody's on staff but they simply want to be a part of the team doesn't qualify them. Just because somebody's been around for a while doesn't qualify them. Just because somebody agrees with the pastor on everything doesn't qualify them. More useful qualities would be lively faith, of course, a commitment to the parish, demonstrated willingness to serve even in simple and humble ways, as well as emotional health. That would be incredibly helpful to bring to the table. You want some people who can think creatively too, and are willing to think a little bit outside of the box.
So Father Michael Sabrito, you have been gathering a team. Do you want to say a few things about them? And also describe your parish as well.
Sure. First of all, my parish is located in northern New Jersey, so we're a parish that has over 4,000 households on the parish roster, on the parish books, if you will. Much less attend, as is common. But we are in a suburban community. We are in a community where close to Manhattan, probably within 30 minutes of Manhattan, and so a lot of people work in New York City, and the very highly driven community. People are, our school system is excellent. Our children are involved in multiple activities such as sports, all kinds of outside, school activities, those kinds of things. I would say in terms of building a team, what I've done most recently is we've been doing some of the things that we have gathered from Rebuilt that we thought were good for us to implement. And so as we began to do that and saw some change in people, some of the things that were just being described to you by Tom and Father Michael have been apparent to me, that there are some people who have been very, very moved by what we're doing, that are creative. We have people, so I've been tapping into that a little bit more now to help us to take the next step. I think a lot of time our parish staff, what's been happening is that, we're caught in the everyday, and it's hard for us to take the next step. And so now what I've got is a group of people. They're just 5 people, and I have people who came to our community new as a result of what we were doing here, and some people who have been part of the community for a long time. And so a mix of men and women. And then what we do is we've been gathering just because we're kind of new and getting started. We've been gathering on a weekly basis just to talk about what we are are looking to do, and that that wisdom, those qualities. First, in being creative, being dedicated to the mission, that we do have a guiding coalition that is definitely with us and moving forward, that we have both the past, and we can advance that rally cry in a positive way to bring about positive change for our community. So those things are now beginning to, that will be like a supplement to our parish staff. We're just getting started, but I've had some good and positive results with working with the group.
Yeah, I think Father Michael, we say a couple of things too. We would reiterate the team shouldn't be too big, 5 to 8 people as part of that. And again, you kind of reinforce some of the things we had said, that you want some old, some new people that can bring a freshness to the parish.
5 to 8 is not any secret number. Less than 5, there's too much of a burden on those who are at the table to carry the conversation forward. More than 8 to 10 or so, it's hard for people to talk. And when people stop talking, they stop listening too. So we think as a working group, 5 to 8 to 10 is about right.
So let's turn to some of the exercises. So the field guide is 10 different exercises. Oh, sorry, Father Michael, that was for you there. So let's talk about some of the 10 exercises that we were saying we want to encourage you to undertake. And just before I get to them, the first couple we're going to see are sort of preliminary work. Then the next bunch come in some of the key things we believe drive parish transformation. So in our talks, when we talk to dioceses, we say there were 3 key strategies that have driven the transformation of our church. The first one was thinking about church from the unchurched person's perspective. So thinking about church not in the context of the way church people think about church, but in the context of the way people who are not going to church come to church. Because if we want to reach people who are not going to church, we need to think about it differently in the way they think about church. Second, that we wanted to prioritize the weekend experience, that we need to create a great weekend experience if we're going to reach the lost, and if we're going to take people on a discipleship path. The weekend is the engine, the core that runs that. And third, we're going to see that the third major strategy is that we need to challenge church people. We say in preaching and teaching, what do you want them to know? What do you want them to do? When it comes to discipleship, what do you want people to do? What do you think are the steps that help them go deeper as a follower of Jesus Christ? And so our exercises are around, a large chunk of the exercises are built around those 3 key strategies, and I'll highlight them as we get to them. But the first 2 are really more preliminary. And so the first exercise we would say is this: in rebuilding, be honest about your real problems. We have to acknowledge the problem before we can move forward. Father Michael, pastor, why is this hard in churches? Why did you find it hard?
Well, partly because it's just hard, period, for anybody in any setting. And partly because as pastors, we're supposed to know everything and have all the answers. And when we don't, it can look like a failure. And partly because there's been no history of this in most of our parishes. A lot of parishes lacked transparency when it came to a lot of things that were going on. Of course, the whole abuse scandal was in part because of a lack of transparency and honesty about real problems, and financial challenges that are found in so many places these days are in part because of a lack of honesty and transparency.
Father Michael Separi, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think sometimes too, I would agree with all of those. And in addition, sometimes, like in my community, so many things were happening. Like we're a busy community, so the busyness of it was the thing that made everything look like it was okay. And every time you run something, there's people at everything. It's okay. But I think one of the insights that I found at the beginning that kind of propelled us was as I went back and got some information from our own diocese that we supplied them, by the way, and we saw that we had the most registered families in our history with the lowest average mass attendance. So we started to say, hey, I think something's kind of up with that.
So yeah, and I think the long-term history of the church, that everything was going so well for so long that we kind of just continued on that thing, or everything's fine, and now I think there is more acknowledgement there's problems that need to be addressed. But again, if the people, until we acknowledge that there are problems, we can't move forward. So that's just the first exercise. The second one we say is this, and this is going to sound counterintuitive when it comes to rebuilding your church, but here's the reality. We need to stop doing stuff, absolutely stop doing stuff. And by that we mean stop doing things that are not the mission Jesus gave the church to go and make disciples. Father Michael, what do you want to add to that?
This is a question that we come up against all of the time. You know, why am I here? Why am I doing this? And that's a question that occurs to us throughout life in various times and places. But in the busyness of life, as Father Michael is suggesting, the why question doesn't get asked soon enough or often enough. We're just running around, doing everything that's already been put on our plate by others, and getting through the week, getting through the weekend, getting through our agenda, and never really getting anything done necessarily that's missional, that's related to discipleship and evangelization, which is the why of why we're here.
Father Michael Separated, do you want to add anything to that?
Again, I think that you hit it right on the head. The question of asking why, I think that's been such an eye-opening thing for us. It is hard. It is very, very, as you say, it's easy to identify the issue. It's hard to do something about it. But I think asking ourselves why we do the things that we do. We've inherited, programs and things the way we are. We feel compelled to keep, producing them, no matter what they're producing. Does anybody look at what they produce? And so when you ask yourself why, it really is a challenging question, and oftentimes a revealing one. And sometimes even if you ask the people who are doing them, even our parish staff, why did we do this? Sometimes it's really fascinating when people can't answer the question.
So I think we're gonna come back to this in a little bit. So I'm going to move forward here on the kind of 10 exercises. The next one, and this is again going back now. The next few are going to be about the strategies we find absolutely important in rebuilding the church. So the first one again is think about church from the unchurched person's perspective. We say it this way: find Tim. So Father Michael, pastor. I'm still messing up the Father Michael, pastor. Do you want to talk about find Tim?
Well, Jesus was all about the lost. He said it himself that he came to seek and save the lost, and he understood very clearly who they were and what they looked like in his community. Do we, in our community, understand who the lost are? And to begin undertaking that exercise, we defined the lost person in our community, and of course, as everybody probably knows by now, we have named him Tim, for Timonium Tim. And we talk about Tim all the time. He is part of our planning. He's part of our evaluation of weekend events. How did what we do speak to Tim?
Yeah, and so what that does for our church community as well, especially our staff, is that when we talk about what would Tim think, it's just a shortcut to be thinking about church from the unchurched person's perspective. And so the reality of church world is we become naturally insular. Began in beginning of the church, Acts 15, the Pharisees are saying you got to have surgery, you need to be circumcised in order to and follow the whole law in order to become a Christian, because that's what they had done their whole life. But obviously the Council of Jerusalem said no. They lowered the bar. They made it easy and accessible for the Gentiles to become Christians, become followers of Christ. But the natural pull of the church is to becoming more and more insular. Father Michael Saporito, how do you guys keep focused on the unchurched in your community?
Well, again, I think this is an area of challenge for us. I think that we certainly try to keep in mind that the people that we're trying to reach. We remind ourselves that especially when you see big and huge gatherings at holidays or times like that, look at the size of the potential that you have, and that what you have and then you see what's going on a regular basis. We're also, I think some of these questions help us to self-reflect upon not just what we're creating, but how we are reaching our community. In other words, we're talking to people that are overscheduled, sometimes living in a fast-paced society where other things are certainly taking their time and attention. They're not necessarily bad things, they're just things that are part of their lives. And then we're trying to capture their attention. Does what we're offering really capture their attention? Do we make it worth their time? Is there something that not just is predictable? Is it challenging? Is it inviting? Is it warm? Is it welcoming? All of those kinds of things, I think, are the things that we now think about that I think prior to before we were just, okay, this is what we're here to do. We've got it, and now everybody else has to buy into it. But we're kind of saying, we have to be aware of what's going on out there to make ourselves more effective.
Great. And I think when it comes to the field guide, what we have is some questions here to help people get on the same page, to get some prayers, some scripture, help people get a heart for the lost, as Jesus had a heart for those who are unconnected to church. So the next few exercises look at, again, how to evaluate your weekend experience. The first one is simply this: you got to work weekends. Now this is a very tough transition for many places to make. Was meeting with the parish in August, and they're trying to turn that over, especially for their staff, to work weekends. And they're having conversations about it, and not an easy conversation. For us, we had to go through a transitional time, but the weekends are absolutely important. They're vital to rebuilding the church. It's where we really create the culture of church. 90% of the people who interact with your church, it's on the weekends. And so if the weekend doesn't change, then really the church has not changed in their eyes. So Father Michael Saporito, before the webinar, we were talking about this a little bit. What have been getting people on your staff to work weekends and see the value of that? What's been the process for you?
Okay, so I think in the beginning for us it was just like the priest thing. We were the ones that were out there on Sundays, but I think especially with anybody that we bring on new, we just make it part of the job expectation, and that has worked for us. We've hired a new DRE. We have music people obviously are here, but they're also available to people on the weekends for following up with how do I find religious education for my child? How do I plan the music for my wedding, or whatever's going on in the community, so that we're not just limiting ourselves to Monday through Friday or night stuff. The people are here. It's convenient for them, and it also isn't like we have to take information. We're not making it hard on them. In other words, making it more by putting up roadblocks, having to get an email address, having to get a phone number, whatever, follow up during the week, connect during the week. You're here now. Let us point you towards the place where you go, and somebody's there to do that. We had this year we kicked off in September with a big welcome back weekend, and one of the things is I made the entire staff be there on Sunday. And in addition to having a booth where we could just answer any kinds of questions, all the staff members were there, and we advertised and made it, we let people know that they could ask questions. That's what we were there to do. If you needed help with anything that was going on in the parish, had any questions about the parish, we're new to the parish. So, and then we pointed people towards the right person. We're able to introduce them, those kinds of things. We also, because we have now really a greeter ministry at all of the masses. When somebody's new, or has a question, and those greeters now know who to take the people to so that they can get their question answered right there on the spot on a Sunday. So it's a work in progress because, you know, again, I came to the community 6 years ago, so we had a way of being already, so not everybody is totally present, but we are slowly making that transition.
Yeah, I think, again, the new hire is a great way to start with that, and then beginning with the key weekends. Father Michael, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I just think that aside from the basic obvious fact that we are most authentically and completely who we are on the weekends, the weekend experience is crucial for evangelization and discipleship. It's the key tool for reaching the lost and putting them on a discipleship path. And if our staff isn't working weekends and wanting to work weekends, then at a certain level they just don't get it.
So hopefully the field guide can do is serve to help them to get it, to have those conversations, create conversations that help people come along with the importance of it.
I would also say that it is a transition. It is a very difficult one, and it can be a deal breaker for a lot of people. I understand that. It's a lifestyle change, choice and change. And we've seen this time and time again. Somebody will come on and they understand that they need to work Sundays or, you know, some part of the weekend. They understand that intellectually, but when it comes down to changing their lifestyle, sometimes some people just can't do it. And as long as they don't make that change, that transition to I work weekends, they're never really fully on board. There's always kind of like drag and pullback and a problem. And eventually, those people leave.
So it's a big thing for us.
It's a big thing for us.
And that goes back then to the next kind of three major things. We say that the weekends, the weekend mass and the programs around it really are based upon three major pillars. So the next three exercises are in helping you to evaluate, to understand the history, to evaluate, and provide and create future rally cries around them. So the first one is to fast and pray for music. And Pastor, we say fast and pray for music because music's tricky. It's a spiritual battle.
After air temperature, music is the single greatest environmental factor for your community because it determines how people feel in your church. Music has power and an ability to change people's hearts, to move us for better or for worse. And so we think that it's very much within the realm of spiritual warfare, really. And the only complete approach is to begin with prayer and fasting.
So that's what we say kind of should be the rally cry for your church, and obviously then asking questions about, again, who are the people that are competent, who are doing well, who can play well, and leading people in worship, and who are some of those people that might need to be removed so that more talented people can step in. The next one, when it comes to the weekend and evaluating, is we say become a church for the unchurched. And what we mean by that is that it takes music and then ministers. We need volunteer ministers who are helping create an environment of hospitality. And so this is a very easy thing we can do, although again, or at least a very simple thing. As we say, it's simple, not easy.
It's simple. It's not easy. It's not easy to get your members up out of the pew and to start serving and to view the parish as something not for them and their needs alone, but as a mission for the unchurched. And it's hard to keep them focused in that way too. We just had a meeting this week about a group of ministers who are very generous in their service and their time, but they become very, insulated and isolated and kind of grumpy about their service because unchurched people, don't know the rules. They don't know the procedures. They can sometimes be, needy or unhelpful. And our church people can become grumpy about that. So it's something, it's a hard transition to make, and then it needs to be tended to in a consistent way.
And I think that's a good point you make, that just we realize some of these things we're promoting with other parishes, we need to keep staying on top of.
Working on ourselves.
Right. You don't fix them once and it's done. Sorry if that's dispiriting to anybody, but that's the way it is. I mean, we're in a different place for sure, but some of these things constantly need attention. So it's about the music, it's about volunteer ministers the weekend, and then we have some, in the field guide, another exercise to help you evaluate the message, and we say make the message matter. Father Michael Saporito, this has been something you guys at St. Helens have worked on some of the best practices of changing the weekend message. You want to talk about that?
Sure. Yes, we really liked when we read about this in the book Rebuilt. We really liked this because we realized that, and we had multiple preachers at one time. We were 3, priests were 2, but I think that you could come to church, you could hear very different message from one priest to the next. We would just do what we had been taught to do in seminary day. I don't think I ever thought about the 2 questions: what do you want people to know, what do you want people to do? When you force yourself to answer those kind of questions in sermon preparation, wow, does that just changes and makes things entirely different. We're in our 4th year of doing the series approach now. We really like it. We've seen some great results, from that, where we have 6 masses on a weekend. So people who go to any of the 6 masses come basically with the same message away. We have different voices to it, but we do, same, message. We've collaborated on that message before, especially about figuring out the what do you want them to know, what do you want them to do part of it. And we see that it really helps us to move our community toward embracing goals, because you're all talking about the same thing on the weekend, and so you leave that, it's something that can be shared amongst all of the people, no matter what, mass that you've gone to. It's not just what I'm doing, it's not what the pastor is saying and not the associate, it's something we're doing together as a community. And then that kind of has, filters down into the other ministries of the church, which is really, great to see, whether it's through small groups or even in our youth program. This year, our youth leaders decided to put our mission statement on their, our 3-word mission statement on their on T-shirts that they actually wear to church. I mean, I couldn't get a better set of advertisers, right? We didn't ask them to do that. That's just something that evolved then from them working together, and being aware of what it was that we were talking about on weekends. And so I also see that the depth of people's responses to the messages are very different, because we're challenging ourselves to come up with what do we want them to know, what do we want them to do, and it's challenging all of us to put our faith into action. And guess what happens when you challenge yourself to do that? You grow. And isn't that the idea?
Yeah, I think, again, for people to step back and evaluate, and as we mentioned in Rebuilt, we would have different messages from different priests. So.
Yeah, you'd actually have contradictory messages going on in some instances, and how confusing is that for the people? But even short of that, we had 4 priests when I first came here, and we were on a rotation. I thought that was a great idea. And so people who went to a consistent Mass would hear me once a month at best. And that was essentially my giving up my pulpit. And my pulpit is my greatest privilege and my biggest opportunity. And how foolish was that for me for so long, to just give it away and let other people speak there instead. We have a wonderful opportunity, and it is the central opportunity that we have to reach the lost and raise up the faithful through our weekend message, and it deserves our very best effort and all of our attention.
So through the field guide, we want to give you some exercises, some questions for discussion. that will help you to move the message forward, to make that homily coordinated in your parish. And so, as Father Michael says, like Father Michael Saporito said, really to help people grow and change. So those are the exercises on helping you to improve the weekend experience. The next one we call simply challenge church people. That, again, what do we want people to do to grow as disciples of Jesus Christ? That in a healthy parish, there's going to be a clarity around what people should be doing to grow as disciples of Jesus Christ. We say here, we've branded it, we call it the next steps. STEPS is an acronym which says serve in ministry and or missions, tithe and give, engage in a small group, so have some friends in faith, practice prayer and sacraments. That's pretty obviously important in growing as a disciple of Jesus Christ, and share your faith. Those are ones we've branded. There's a clarity around that language, and any healthy church is going to have a clarity around what they're asking people to do to grow as followers of Jesus Christ.
So you have to decide, our steps are our steps. They don't need to be your steps. We think they're rather complete, but you might approach them in a different way, and that's fine. But do you know what the challenges are that you want your church people to undertake? Are they consistent? Are they clear? I think in most churches they are not. I think in most churches we're challenging people all of the time in myriad ways, and it all gets confused. And when people are confused about what you want them to do, guess what they do? Nothing at all. So, as the Acts of the Apostles show, when you get people contributing their time and their resources to the church, and in the process forgetting about themselves and their own needs, it creates an unmatched spiritual energy and momentum that's just going to help your church take off. So you got to do this.
So again, we want to help you understand what those are. Another exercise is for us to say, again, look at your bulletin, and what does your bulletin say about what you really want people to do? And again, do you really believe that makes disciples, that matches what you think helps people grow as followers of Jesus Christ? Actually, the ninth exercise is to expect conflict. So in our book, we call this War in Heaven, and the reality is that there will be some kind of conflict. And one of the important things, I think, as a team that can be helpful is if there are people, you have some people that are helping you to process the conflict, to understand the conflict, to make sense of the conflict, that will come if you make changes that just can support one another and help each other on this journey and not get overwhelmed by it. Do you want anything?
Sure. Well, we think not only is it inevitable and validating, we think that it is absolutely necessary for growth as a parish and for maturing as in leadership. You've just got to lean into the conflict that it's going to come with change and growth.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of an insight we've had, that over time that you can't get to the next level of maturity without some of the struggle and some of the conflict. That is, it is part and parcel of the process. Father Michael Saporito, anything you want to add about the conflict part? I don't know, or anything you can say. Maybe you can't say anything about that.
Well, I think that I think the conflict is inevitable. It seems unnatural sometimes to us as church too, because our perception is we need to be nice to everyone and everything, and we do try to be. It's not that we're just slapping people all around and not listening to them. However, you can't be. That's, earlier on we talked about having a driving coalition. That's why it's important, because when more and more people are buying into that mission, it's those pieces of things that then become, people are complaining about a lot of things that then become the smaller voice in the thing over time. But yes, it will come. Think about it. You can move. If you moved your personal items in the morning, and put them all in a different place and you couldn't find them, it would drive you crazy. When you begin to move pieces that are ingrained in a community in any way, you start to ruffle feathers. It's just part of it.
Right. so what we want to do is be able to help you, again, to process that, the field guides, and help you understand that it is part of the process, have questions, have conversations around that topic, again, so that when the conflict does come, it doesn't stop the change or stop you in your tracks, but you're able to handle it well. And we admit we didn't always handle that all that well, but handle it well and move forward. And again, conflict always going to be messy. Maybe there is no perfect way to handle it, but we can handle it well if we're prepared for it and know where it's going to come from. And then final exercise we say is lead where you serve. So we talk about some of the important characteristics of leadership and how to identify some of the leaders in your church, or how to look for leaders in your church. So those are the 10 exercises. We just have a couple of minutes here. I wanted to go through one of them just to give people a flavor for that. So one of them, again, we said is stop doing stuff. Father Michael earlier, we have this, it begins with a section called Consider. Father Michael read from that a little bit earlier about, again, that question, why am I here? So if you go through the exercises, there's that paragraph, again, to get people asking these questions, get people on the same page. Then there is a prayer. I'll just read the prayer for you from the Stop Doing Stuff chapter. Heavenly Father, in the days before he died, your Son faced the reality of the cross and taught his disciples about the hope and promise it would hold. Despite whatever promises and challenges we face in our parish ministry, help us to grow in our understanding of our mission and the purpose you call us to serve. And we pray this through Christ our Lord. And again, Jesus was very clear about what his mission was, that he had come to seek and save the lost, that when it was time to come to the cross, he knew it was for that purpose that he had come. And so then from there, we invite you to tell your story. So Father Michael Saporito, again, when was St. Helens founded? What were the original founders trying to accomplish?
Okay. Well, St. Helens was founded in 1968. Westfield was a... What's that?
Sorry, that's the same year as Nativity. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, it was founded in 1968, and Westfield was a growing community. It already had a Catholic community in it, but so many people were moving into the town that they felt like there was a need for a second Catholic parish, and so St. Helens, was founded. Since it came after the Second Vatican Council, of course, both the church building and the times reflected that. Our church is, is built in a semi-round with a slanted floor, like a theater kind of seating. So when you're in the body of the church, you really do feel surrounded by the people, and you can see them all as you preach or do anything there. So you have that, that real sense. So it was really led by as the community came from that, with a couple of hundred families in the beginning. It really took on that mission of empowering lay people into ministry, and that was a really big part of the growth at that time. And part of it was we call it here Cornerstone Retreats, or Christ Renews His Parish, was a big piece of moving, of getting lay people to have a spiritual experience and then call them into ministry and service. That was a big boom for St. Helens. They had some really good preachers at the time, and that combination of that and the retreat experiences really drove the numbers in the community. It began to draw people from outside of Westfield, and the community went from a few hundred families to thousands of families, and really had a lot of people with a lot of things, like small groups were going on regularly, those kinds of things, even before they were kind of in fashion, so to speak. And so that's what's so attractive about what we're talking about in this whole process for us, is because we have vestiges of this in the old that now need to just be, brought forward.
Right.
So that's an opportunity for us.
Yeah, I think that's the important part of the story, is to understand, again, that history. When you go in and change things, at least if you understand that when the conflict does come, you can engage that more, or at least understand with a compassionate heart where it's coming from.
Absolutely.
Again, knowing all that history about where you are helps you to again, evaluate where you are in the present and then eventually move forward in the future.
Yeah, could I just add one thing in there, Tom, is just to say that we weren't, because sometimes when we undertake these things, the assumption is, oh, we're doing something, sometimes it will be that we're not doing something well and we're making an improvement. In some cases, things are good, but they just need to be given some more life to them. So it's not always taking a bad and making it good. Sometimes you have things that are really good and they just need to be either resuscitated or given a new life or adapting to the signs of the times that we're in.
Exactly. I was going to add is that Helping the History understands what were the principles, because it worked for that point, or the people who thought that was a good idea at that time, and if it worked, it was a good idea. But now, whatever while the principle might be right, or whatever were the accidentals of that needed to be implemented no longer work. And so, again, just a way for us to honor the past and then move forward and understand what were the key principles that were working, because those key principles will work in our time, just need to be changed. We're kind of at our end here. I know we want to leave room for questions. So one of the questions I ask all the time, why do we lose sight of the mission? Jesus was so clear about the mission to make disciples. Why do we lose sight of it? Important conversation for you to have with your team. And then, again, going through the parish and evaluating things and knowing stop doing things that don't work. So I know we want to leave some room for questions. I just wanted to, real quick, Jared, I'll turn it back over to you. And I'm going to ignore these slides. I just want to, again, let people know about our Rebuilt Parish Association. Go to rebuiltparishassociation.com. When it comes to us wanting to help churches, our first thing is books. And we're so grateful to Ave Maria as a partner in that we share our ideas through books. This field guide's a kind of next step to implement things. And then the Rebuilt Parish Association is a place where we have resources available: homilies, small group materials, student ministry, children's ministries, materials available. And if you want to check out more, you can go to rebuiltparishassociation.com. And with that, Jared, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thanks, guys. We've got a number of questions that have already come in, so I'm going to pick a few, and then we can respond. And I think all three of you, I'm sure, could jump in for a lot of these questions. Just to, I think most people are just kind of looking for some reassurance, some clarification, and all, but also just knowing, how they can apply this to their own parish. The first question that came in, Linda was asking right out of the gate, if there were times when you wanted to throw in the towel, and how did you press on?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I think just the theme verse that's become my verse and is from Acts 20:24, and Paul says, I consider my life of no value, not as precious to myself or of any value except that I accomplished the course and the ministry given to me by the Lord Jesus Christ to testify to the gospel of grace. And I think, at the end of the day, when you want to quit, what you come back to is, what does God want you to do? And there's certainly dysfunctional situations out there. We understand that. Or there's very difficult situations. But you always go back, God, where are you calling me to do? That you called me into this ministry, and God, it's up to you to call me out. And so I think that's my advice to anyone who's feeling that they want to quit. Read Acts 20:24 and pray to be like Paul, to accomplish the ministry and the course God has given to you. Just don't let your feelings overwhelm you, and let them be your guide. Let God be your guide.
Right, and don't always believe what you think. You think you want to quit. I felt that way yesterday. We had some bad news and some things going on, and I felt like, geez, wouldn't it be great to walk away from all of this? That's what I'm thinking. But that's not really what I believe. What I believe that God is doing a work here, and that He's given us an opportunity to be a part of it. That's what I believe. And I have to let that thought and that feeling kind of pass. And in time, it does. And you can return to what you authentically believe.
Yeah, and I think I'd just like to add that when you see spiritual transformation really take place in people, it's the most exciting thing in the world. And that's what keeps you going, for all of the difficulties that you face when somebody comes up and somebody you don't know sometimes not involved. I came here, I heard this, I experienced this. This was worth my time. I mean, those are the kinds of things that just, keep you going. It's not change for change's sake. It's change that brings about what it is the mission of the church is about, to offer the transformation of Jesus Christ to others.
And off of that, there's a question that comes in about analysis paralysis. What do you do if your pastor suffers from analysis paralysis? And maybe you can expand on, we're going to stop doing stuff, but how do you really hone in on these things we need to keep, these things we need to do differently, these things are just the status quo, and what would you say?
I mean, first of all, there's no right answer. Like, I think sometimes we think there's got to be a right answer. Start moving. Take the next step. That's why we say a rally cry, and we're going to rally around this and do this. Is it the perfectly right answer? I don't know, but it's a lot easier for God to move to steer a moving ship than something that's just sitting in the harbor and not going anywhere. So do something. I mean, do something that's intentional and strategic, but it doesn't have to be the most strategic, intentional thing. It doesn't have to be the most strategic. You don't know what that is till afterwards.
If your pastor is reluctant or resistant, I think that carve out a piece that he's willing to allow you to go with, do a good job with it, show the success of it, the fruit of it, and he's going to be more willing to listen to your next idea.
And failure is part of the process. I think we're afraid sometimes to fail of small failures. Small failures are part of the process. We say beta test, try things out in a way where if they fail, it's okay that they fail, and you can learn and grow from there.
We have a pretty simple question about some examples. Can you give some examples of a message, or maybe I think message series? So can you either parish give some examples of the themes or the message series titles or names you'd come up with?
Yeah, we just we just finished one in October because we focused on the second letter of St. Paul to Timothy the whole month. We just we called it Fan the Flame. It came right from the opening week, and we talked about faith all month from the perspective that St. Paul was looking at throughout the throughout those 4 weeks in October, and we were talking about faith from different perspectives. St. Paul was writing that letter to encourage Timothy and others to continue the journey of faith no matter what, and that's a difficult thing for all of us to face. So what are some of the things that the scriptures help us to talk about in faith? What does it mean to persevere in faith? What does it mean to persist in faith? What does it mean to have a faith legacy? Those are the kind of things. So we divided one piece each Sunday. That's the thing that we did. We did one piece each Sunday, driven by the scripture, and it was a whole series on faith.
So one of the things we have on the Rebuild Parish Association right now, we for the fall we did a series called Breathing Room a few years ago. That's available there. That's about having margin in our time and our money, in our life basically. We did a series called Responsibility, which is about how we respond to God's blessings through our time and our giving. So those kind of things. Right now we are about to start it. We're actually in the middle of a series calling Insomnia, the lies that keep you up at night, talking about some of the fears. So there's a couple of ideas for message series, and again, Rebuild Parish Association has other ones if you'd like to check that out.
A good place to start would be Advent or Lent, which are kind of tight liturgical seasons that already present themes that you can shape into message series.
We called one a few years ago, called it Christmas is Coming. No, we have an incredible grasp of the obvious, so, but obviously around a Christmas theme, kind of Advent theme.
That's great. We've got kind of a, I think a theological question, but it probably could be answered in a practical way. Lynn's asking it, she says, I'll kind of summarize that from Genesis to Pope John Paul II's encyclical, it's important and essential to have a Sabbath and a Sunday. We're not meant to work 7 days. There's family time, downtime. These are all kind of reactions you might have to working on the weekends. But from a practical standpoint, maybe, and how does that work in the parish with your employees?
All right. So my Sabbath's Friday. I mean, that's my Sabbath. So someone's got, someone's got to work
Somebody's
Sunday,
gotta work on Sunday.
so the church doesn't run itself. So the Levitical priests, they had to be there on the Sabbath in the Old Testament. So yeah, you have to find another day. I mean, again, it's not, the point is not it's got to be the Sunday. In fact, it was the Saturday, right? That's Sabbath, the Saturday. But that's got to be a day of rest. It's the principle of rest that's what's important, right? Father Michael Sapper, what's your day off?
Mine is Thursday.
Okay. I was hoping you were going to say Tuesday. So.
So we've got, as always, guys, we've got tons of questions. I'm trying to pick the kind of the best one with the last few minutes we have. Kind of maybe probably a common question you get is, but I like the way that it's phrased is, it seems that the movement has to come from the top down. Do you know any parishes that have laity-led charge in spite of quote-unquote management? But can you think of some examples?
I mean, the best one I can think of, did you have one you wanted to think? Okay, was, yeah, I mean, there's a parish, I would say is really, at least, who's had the most conversations with us has been parishioners, was Boca Raton Ascension Church in Boca Raton. And they've, again, I think the pastor is on board, but a lot of lay people have made that happen. So I don't know all the ins and outs of their parish, but we're contacted constantly by a guy named Bill Cramsey. I'll give him a shout out. Don't know if he's listening, but we love Bill and the people they've assembled down there. So it can happen. It can happen.
Cool. I want to, as always, I'll probably send the questions over to you guys after we're done, just so you can maybe respond to them if you want to. But there's lots of great questions. I think will be good feedback in general. One of the questions that we asked a couple different times was about, is the PowerPoint available? And I don't think we'll make the PowerPoint available, but I think the field guide itself was kind of the PowerPoint itself. That was the exercises that you went through. So, probably the best thing to do rather than get the PowerPoint was to get the actual field guide itself. I don't want to be a salesman, but I think that's going to give you more than just the outline of what we did today.
Yeah, pretty much the field guide was just from the book itself, so or the PowerPoint was from the field guide itself. So
I mean, I've got the 10 things you went through. I wrote down, and I think anybody could go through that, and just based on the summaries you had in the webinar, could go through that. But the field guide's going to have the questions, the kind of the stories, the setup. I feel, just be honest, I loved Rebuilt when it first came out. This book really captures, I think, the essence, the story, the emotion, the things you added in, and it brings back and has the lessons you've learned and the feedback you've gotten and put into this field guide has been a really great gift. So thanks, guys, for putting that together. One more time about Rebuilt Parish Association. You want to say a couple more words, and then we'll end up with the invite people to get the book as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, just we want to give the resources people need to make this stuff happen. And again, a core thing for us has really been the homilies, the message series. That has just been a best practice that has really been core to transforming our church. So the Rebuilt Parish Association has our past homilies, our small group materials, our high school, our student ministries, and our children's ministries that really we've been the kind of tactical things to change the church. So we know that some of these things are difficult in theory, but we want to just package it for you, make it as easy as possible to move forward. So check out the Rebuilt Parish Association. Again, it's rebuiltparishassociation.com, and just take a look at it because we think it's really a great resource.
Well, another good resource, of course, is the field guide, which is just coming out this month. The Rebuilt field guide is going to give you, as Tom said before, the Cliff Notes version of the Rebuilt. It's going to give you lots of exercises you can do as a team, and I love the way that it's structured. There's prayer, there's the rally cries, which I think are really unique aspect to this book that are going to, it's more than just like a workbook. This is something that's going to help drive the team into a conversation that's going to make some changes. So if you want to use the promo code webinar 1025, that's for today's date, feel free to do that. You'll get 20% off the field guide, and use that by next Tuesday, November 1st. I want to quickly thank our partners in the series, the National Conference for Catechetic Leadership, the National Association for Catholic Family Life Ministers, the National Association for Lay Ministry, and the National Federation of Priests Councils. The webinar we have right now is being recorded. It'll show up on Vimeo and YouTube.com, as well as the place where we put all of our webinars, the library of webinars, ivanmirpress.com/webinar-videos. Real quickly, I want to invite you to the webinar for next not next week, but next month, November 15th, Dr. Susan Muto will talk to us about exploring 12 little ways to embrace the evangelical mission of the church. So it is little ways because it's based on St. Therese, and she's going to give us some insights on how to be evangelizing ourselves, but also some things we can share with our parishioners as to what they can do in their own personal lives as well. So we're looking forward to that. So thank you guys for presenting today, for giving us, kind of guiding us through some ways to rebuild our parishes. I really appreciate the time that you've given, especially you, Father Michael, for offering your time as well.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time, and God bless.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Jared.